performance by local musicians at a session of traditional Irish music at Satchel's Pizza. In this podcast, the issue of authenticity as it relates to the representation of Celtic music in America will be explored. Phil Williamson and John Mays, both American performers of Celtic music, will offer insight on this issue. Here's our interview with Phil Williamson. So you don't really consider yourself part of the Celtic culture?
No, not really. I don't feel, part of that culture.
Do you ever feel like you're kind of representing them in some way, maybe indirectly?
Well, yeah, and of course, I'm here in the U.S. It might be different, if I lived in Ireland or Scotland or something, but here in the U.S., most of the people that like that kind of music or follow that kind of music are not necessarily, have that culture themselves. Some do, but the mass migrations, occurred really quite some time ago, during the Irish potato famine and other things like that. So most of the immigration that occurred in those cultures was a long time ago. And so as the people that immigrated, settled here and, had families and so forth, and a lot of generations have come and gone. And so I don't think here in the U.S. The cultural aspects of it are not the same as they probably would be if I was in Ireland, say, or Scotland or something,
Okay.
where the culture is more direct and it's evolved that way.
How important are history and tradition for you whenever you perform?
Well,
how much flexibility do you have?
Well, we have plenty of flexibility. To me, the history and tradition, for me personally, is probably not as important as it is to a number of players that in this genre of music. I just personally got into it just simply because I liked the melodies. I liked, the feel of the music. So I just liked it, for the music, for its own sake. And I have some Scots-Irish in my background, but probably not much more than many other people. Not enough that I would identify with it, to say I'm Scottish or Irish or anything like that. But for me, it was the tradition behind the music and all is not all that important now.
That was Phil Williamson. Here's John Mays, who describes his early exposure to Celtic music as a child and offers his views on the nature of authenticity in Celtic music and the challenges faced by people performing this music in different cultures today.
What first made you interested in the Celtic music?
I think it just combines a love for music with family. And I just grew up around it up in Appalachia. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the mountains, the Smoky Mountains, and particularly the Blue Ridge and Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia, Tennessee, and Virginia. So it's just a family thing. Mm-hmm. I have uncles and stuff, and family, friends. My dad was a classical musician because he wanted to get away from that. He wanted away from being a mountaineer, and away from the immigrant family and be, academic. But it was always there. So I was just always surrounded by bluegrass and Irish stuff.
Cool. What's your opinion on authenticity? What would you consider authentic Celtic music?
Authentic. Yeah, when you talk about traditional music, that's loaded, right? Because part of a tradition is that it evolves. Mm-hmm. So I think if you preserve exactly how something was played 200, 300 years ago in West Clare, by piping students of Leo Rowson, or he wouldn't know Leo Rowson, but whoever, and you play exactly like that, because you're listening to recordings, old wax recordings and stuff. I mean, it's pretty flippin' authentic, but again, it's not authentic of the time. It's this concept of zeitgeist, and things change every time. So, the way that the music has adapted over the years, I think, is pretty authentic as well. I think anything that tries to sound like something it's not is not authentic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, traditions grow. I think every musical genre's got a place for the traditionalists, and for more of the avant-garde, the people that are, taking it in different directions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can find it in rock and roll. You find it in country. You look like not Lester Flatts, he's old school, but you can find people in Nashville that are the guardians of bluegrass or old style play versus country artists. A banjo and a fiddle, but it's still very different.
What do you think are some challenges that musicians face when representing this different culture?
And specific to the Irish or the Celtic?
Yes.
There's a really strong multi-generational support system. Biggest thing is finding that support system. And I'm in my 40s. I'm not the oldest that I play with, but actually the youngest that I play with. I've got kids, and one other guy that plays music has a couple others have kids. Most of them don't. They've got the music, they've got their cat collection, and they don't have kids. So after we start dying off around here, who's going to pick this stuff up? Who's going to be the next generation? So I'm trying to figure out how we can start what we had in Charlottesville, which is an Irish music school of some sort, to start those collections amongst the kids.
Yeah.
My daughter's got dance friends because she takes dance classes, so she sees her friends dancing and it motivates her, and she's a very good dancer. She takes fiddle lesson from one fiddle teacher. There's not a group, there's not a group dynamic. And kids, her age, she's 7, they want other kids. So something has to be done. I think that's a big thing.
That was John Mays. One can conclude that the issue of authenticity in the performance of Celtic music in America can be solved by performers genuinely taking inspiration from that tradition, performing music that is derivative of it, even if the new music is itself innovative and